All right. Yeah.
Let me put this.
I don't care. What do you want to do? Yeah. I'll go. Yeah. Hey guys. I almost said good morning. It's good afternoon. Thank you for meeting us here off-site, but we thought it would be important, given today's announcement, to do it here. As you guys know, we've been talking about trying to have a greater focus on maintaining the things that we have. I think generationally in the city, we kind of lost our way in that, and that we've had lots of projects, certainly in this administration, where we've had to face the music, for better or worse, on things that may have been neglected over years, if not decades of time. So what we said over in the last several months was, well, we understand what a huge community asset the Cobb Center is and the history that it has, and that unlike the situation at Malcolm Young, where we had allowed that as a community to become far too gone, we certainly knew that we needed to turn our focus to Cobb Center so that we didn't have the same fate, that we didn't allow the building to reach such a point. We knew that there's disrepair. You can see it visually on the arches outside, that we know we're on our way there, but that myself and Councilwoman Broughton had certainly made this a priority to say that we're not going to allow that same story to happen again, that we say it's just too far gone. That is why we're here today. In September 2023, we had asked Geosyntec to complete a limited structural assessment, and they found that the following repairs at Cobb Center were needed. The glue and wooden arches that I just mentioned out there that you can see, the north entrance canopy just in front of me here on the exterior, the steel support columns, there's some hairline cracking on the west exterior walls, and then of course the roof itself needing repair and or replacement. So once we determined that the center was certainly in salvageable shape as we expected it to be, then we moved to a larger, more comprehensive look. We knew that those things needed to be addressed, and then what were we going to do about it? So the great news is, as we sit here today, we know that all those things can be fixed and all of them can be saved. So we're going to be using various means. I've learned a lot about how to fix arches since I've been in this job, so we had a lot of conversation about that. And what our focus is going to be at Cobb Center is on the envelope, on the exterior. That is where we're most desperate for repairs. And again, left unkept and unnoticed, we would find ourselves in a much dire situation. That being said, the structural assessment we received does say that we need to take swift action, and that's what we plan to do. So the estimated cost for the high priority work, that's everything on the outside, the roof, the arches, some of the cracking along the walls, is $1.7 million. And that is a significant lift. There's no doubt about it. But fortunately, Councilwoman Broughton, our council members, and myself had started to take these steps. We had started putting some money aside for maintenance, so we wouldn't find ourselves in a difficult situation, some of the difficult situations that we've had before. So we're very, very excited to announce that we're going to make it happen. We are going to be able to make the much-needed repairs to Cobb Center in order to have it saved. I've got a collection of celebrities over here next to me. Councilwoman Broughton, I want her to speak about her passion to save this and the conversations that we've had and how important it is. We got the champ, Roy Jones Jr., that really crafted his basketball success, his second sport in this facility. I want him to share a little bit about that, and of course, Commissioner May. We are in Commissioner May's district, and again, someone very, very involved in youth sports. So again, thank you for being here, and when they're finished, I'll give you a little bit more detail. Thanks.
Thank you. Real quick, I just want to thank the mayor's office, Commissioner May, for doing what they could to get the word out about the importance of saving Cobb Center. I remember coming to this place as a little kid. I could not play basketball at all, but I remember hanging out here, and this has always been a place where people would gather, socialize, whether it be small children with their parents, with their dads, just to be able to have a place to express ourselves. And I thank you for making sure that Cobb Center is not going to fall the way of Malcolm Young. Here in District 5, we want to prioritize our community and prioritize ourselves, and that's what we've done today. Thank you so much. Would you like to say some words, Commissioner? Okay. Oh, well, the Commissioner is going to give the mic to Roy. I want to hear what Roy has to say.
Good morning, everybody. I don't have a lot to say except that I'm honored to be here and to hear about the remodeling process, because I came here the very first time that I can remember when I was about 6 years old. I came here at 6 to watch my dad play basketball at Cobb Center. So I learned about Cobb Center as a young kid. When I got about 12, I started coming back to Cobb Center myself. And my goal was to carry on this tradition that I saw my daddy doing here. So I became a basketball killer. And I was already killing in boxing, but nobody expected me to be a killer in basketball. But Reeves knew I became a killer right here in Cobb Center. So I was the man around here for a while. That was a good thing. But to see them come back and give other kids the opportunity to be able to come, grow, and develop in here means more than anything to me, because without it, who knows where I might have been. You know what I mean? I could have gotten in trouble because I had nowhere to go. Instead, when I got home, I knew I had to go to boxing practice, and I had to go to Cobb Center, because Cobb Center was basketball and boxing practice was boxing practice. Both of them turned out great, so good to see this community still supports the center. I want to thank the mayor, Antonio, and Lumen for coming in and doing what needed to be done to save Cobb Center. And even some of my kids were raised up in here. So it's a beautiful thing for me. God bless y'all. Thank y'all for everything.
It's hard to follow the champ because nobody can follow the champ, and he always represents Pensacola. And when Councilman Broughton called and said, Lumen, please call the mayor, we got to get Cobb Center up and going, it touched my heart, because I do get to see firsthand the great work that Myra did and Reba continues to do in changing lives. And community centers change lives for people. And so I want to commend this mayor for having the courage. And as you know, my father was a historic guy working with the mayor's father, Jim Reeves, and my father did a lot downtown in saving buildings. And to save the structure for this community, it's awesome, because we can never erase history. And this place has a lot of history, and it changed a lot of lives throughout this community. It's a beacon of hope in my district, in my neighborhood. Although I represent the county, I grew up in community centers. My grandmother was a janitor for Fricker and Cobb for 33 years. And I remember when James Broughton left the east side and came to Fricker Center to the west side, and we left Roy over here, and we went over there where he played real basketball at Fricker Center. So so we are glad that this is happening. Councilman Broughton, what another win for you in your commitment for the improvement of lives and your investment in human capital. It's the little children in the after-school program that's going to be enhanced. It's the young people who are playing basketball. Although they may not become a Roy Jones Jr., they may become the next mayor, the next director of Cobb Center. They may become the next city manager. Who knows what they can become if we only give them hope. And so I see today as an opportunity of giving children who you may never meet hope and opportunity. So, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Brown, thank you for giving our community hope and opportunity.
Thank you, guys. I mean, you know, Roy, imagine if you weren't so distracted with boxing, what you could have done in basketball. You know, if you just focused on all that, you might have been an NBA player and the best fighter of all time. Thank you, guys, and happy to take questions. And I know so is Councilwoman Broughton and Roy and Commissioner May. One, I'll address quickly. You know, really the distinct difference between a situation where we had allowed, as a community, had allowed a building to be too far gone versus this one. And I think there's a couple important things to point out. Number one, Cobb Center, fortunately for us, Cobb Center had not dilapidated to the point that Malcolm Young had dilapidated to. When on September 9th, 2020, when that city council, I was not here, Councilwoman Broughton was not here, but when the District 6 commissioner, city council person voted and made a motion to move $715,000 from Malcolm Young to another project, that ultimately was the death certificate for Malcolm Young as it played out. And really where we ended up, and I think when you see that the $1.7 million price tag for what it's going to take, that is a heavy lift for our budget. There's no doubt about it. And we still need council approvals on some of that and how we're going to cobble that together. We had already set aside some money About $550,000 is currently in the budget preemptively, because we knew that wouldn't be enough for everything, but we were trying we knew that there was gonna have to be something to take place here. A second distinction I think is really important is when you see the $1.7 million price tag, again, understand that's on a building in better condition than Malcolm Young, and I think it only reaffirms all the great expert opinion and data, not conjecture, but data that we had when we were assessing Malcolm Young that told us the same thing, that when you have to do the arches, which means you do the roof and you bring everything up to code, that it's going to be extremely expensive. So I know there was some conversation about there, you can do it for this, you could do it for that. I think the number that we have today proves and continues to reinforce the point that, that fixing a building like this is a significant financial lift. And lastly, right now, this center and this staff and our Parks and Rec staff, I mean, there may not be a minute free in this building all day. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, there's someone here every hour of every day. This facility is so vital to this neighborhood and is in the public good. Malcolm Young, when I took office, was not. We had decided as a community to lease that away to one user, and there had not been public programming there for many, many years prior to that. So that only makes saving this building, that it is such an asset to our children here, to our neighborhood, that we wanted to make sure that, of course, it continued to stay that way, and to stay that way generations into the future. So again, very, very excited for this. Next step is 100% drawings. We'll prepare for a bidding process, and we'll see what happens. And of course, we'll have to go to council and figure out some of that funding that will have to be moved. But that is everything I have on Cobb. I want to just pause there and take any questions to give our folks opportunities to answer as well from the media. It would be too early to say that, just because we have an idea of the scope, and our engineers have given us kind of a rough timeline, but what comes with that is RFPing, and there's some other things that it'd probably be too early to say. I would say that the timeline of the entire overhaul, it's not going to be a 1 month project or even a 3 month. When you start replacing roofs, glulam arches, I expect that the renovation and repair itself will be a months-long project. But our team is very mindful of what's going on in here and all of that, and so it won't just be that we'll pick a random day and start. I think, for example, the roof of the community center needs to be replaced, not just the gym. Well, we can start work on that and kind of step it in a lot of different directions based on programming. So like any construction project, I expect there's going to be inconvenience. I think it'd be unfair to say you won't know what's going on for a whole year or for months of time. Obviously, will they have to shut down the gym for a certain amount of time? I would expect so, if you're on the roof working on it. How long, we'll have better clarity on that when we start getting into the bid process and letting those construction folks, give us a little bit more of a timeline. But in terms of how long will the project take, I mean, it'll be a several month project given the scope of what's going to happen. So, but when you walk up with the project completed, it will be a new outside of this building. From how it looks, from our parking lot that needs some TLC, for the outside, the paint, the cinder block structure, the arches, the roof, everything. The outside exterior envelope will be all new. It will be a new building and something that I feel like that the neighborhood and the community that uses it can be proud of. Anything else on Cobb? All right, that's it, right? Commissioner, you got off easy. Thank y'all. All right, a few other things, and happy to take your questions on anything else. We continue to, Bruce Beach, we continue to investigate the potential sources of contamination, working with DEP and ECUA. And right now, Bruce Beach has tested low for bacteria counts for the last 2 weeks, and the Department of Health has lifted the water quality health advisory. But we're, of course, continuing our investigation, and we'll continue coordinating with all of those parties, UWF, Department of Health, DEP, and ECUA. The city will select another round of sites to perform additional sampling. We're going into the stormwater basin and trying to find where high counts are coming from. We've already been doing that. I think Friday of last week, we had started to pull manhole covers and looking up the stormwater basin in tandem with our other agencies. And so we'll continue to do that. We don't have any finality today, but we'll continue to move that forward. Also, the Milton response for the police department and the fire department, both teams are now headed home from their deployments along the state's west coast. If you recall, we had sent 4 of our firefighters and 10 of our police officers who had raised their hand to volunteer to go help our neighbors in need, and very, very appreciative of them doing that. The PFD crew worked in the Largo area, removing debris, cleaning streets, and serving as backup on emergency calls. And our PPD crew worked in the Holmes Beach, Bradenton Beach area, conducting regular patrols, manning checkpoints, and providing protection from looters. We expect both teams to be back sometime later tonight, and we thank them, of course, for their service, not only to the community, but the communities that were affected. Airport traffic, I expect something formal will be coming out from our airport on this, but we got the great news that for the year, the fiscal year, 2024, we eclipsed the $3 million passenger mark through our terminal, which is nearly 400,000 more passengers than we had in the year previous. So our explosive growth at the airport and our increased need for more infrastructure, more parking, and a new airport terminal continues to bear out in the data. So we've got 3 million passengers for the first time in the history of the airport. And passenger counts were up more than 6% September 23 compared to September 24. So we continue to see that 12, 13, 14% growth pretty much any way you slice it year over year. We're very, very excited for that. One other thing you might see downtown, the Blue Trees project from November 1st to 9th, you may notice if you wonder if there's something in the soil, the Blue Trees on Zaragoza there at Museum Plaza between Tarragona and Jefferson is a historic trust grant from Foo Fest and ACE to transform that area into a blue forest as part of a Blue Trees environmental art installation by Australian artists. This is going to be a mouthful. Konstantin Dimopoulos. Blue Trees is an ongoing international arts installation that was created in 36 cities around the world. And the color, in case it comes up, the color used on the trees is water-based. It's been developed specifically for this artwork series. No, nothing will happen. There'll be no negative environmental impacts from what's used to put the blue color on those trees. So that is everything I've got to update you on, and happy to take questions on that or anything else. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a conversation that every community has, and what's the give and take of private property ownership and decisions of what you can do with private property, and the ability to conserve the character of communities. And sometimes they're real easy decisions, you know, depending on what's happened at that property, the historical significance of the property. I think Gibson School is a perfect example. The historical significance of that property has really had the city be very proactive in making sure that a decision isn't made. Then there's some gray areas of, you know, very old homes, historic homes, maybe not the same historical significance, but it's also private property, and someone has the right or ability to, you know, where do you draw the line of the government's oversight on what someone is allowed to do with their private property? You know, it's a couple different things on this. Number one, I know the builder that you're referring to, and George Sitton and his company, and he's a lifelong Pensacola resident. I think he's a very good guy, and I think he's done good, and him and his family certainly have done good for this community. And I think we see some update like this, and sometimes we assume the worst. And you know, this is someone who cares about this community. That's number one. Number two, you know, certainly. Yeah, I have personal interests. It's the house I came home from when I was born at Baptist Hospital. So, of course, personally, to me, you know, I was born on March 25th, 1984, and I assume I was there on March 26th or March 27th. I don't remember much about it, but you know, there's certainly some personal significance to the place where you were born. So, you know, it's a difficult situation. I know they'll go to ARB on Thursday, and you know, personal things aside, you know, I feel like any opportunity that the city has to play a role in conservation of our community is a good one. And certainly we'd be at the ready if there's some ability for us to do that. But there's also rules, and the rules are we can delay demolition for 60 days based on the age of the structure, and after that, you know, there's not a lot in our hands that we can do at that point. So, you know, I'm torn about this. Of course, you know, I have a personal connection to this, and I also know that the person proposing what they want to do there is a good person, and that they do good in this community. And so, yeah, certainly it's a difficult situation that I find myself, you know, kind of torn on personally, really on all sides.
Last night I was watching TV and I saw an article about some changes that are coming to East Side. Some changes that may be proposed as far as changing Martin Luther King Jr. and Davis Highway to two-way operations, as well as some of the other activities that may be proposed. What I'd like to know, and I'm not opposed to any of that, I just want to make the record clear. I think it's time for that. Those two changes I know to happen. The other thing that I want to know is, will the neighbors in East Side community be notified when those meetings actually happen?
So yeah, I agree. I certainly appreciate your question, and I want to clarify the record too. What was reported last night was quotes and conversations from an outside consultant that has been engaging the community for months, as a matter of fact. And so they propose, when we do a CRA update, we propose some projects can be done in a year, some are visionary projects. What's going to happen at Baptist, what's going to happen at Barrancas, the significant expense that it would take and time, regardless, to do those project, the one-waying, or excuse me, two-waying. So that's their job, is they come in every X number of years and they say, okay, well, we want to listen to our community and then give guidance to the mayor, to the CRA, to the administration on what the community is telling us the priorities are. So the person you heard on television last night was someone that is the consultant helping put that report together. That was not someone from the city saying, we're full steam ahead doing that. That being said, if the conversation was more general about what's my opinion about one-waying versus two-waying, I think the data is absolutely unanimous that two-waying a street is safer for the community, period. So it doesn't matter what street we're talking about. If you said, is a street safer if it's 2 lanes of one-way versus a two-way street, traffic naturally moves slower. It's easier to cross. And so some of the things that outside group had discussed and proposed was not just the two-waying of the street, but also additional on-street parking, doing bump outs at the sidewalk so it's less of a trek to get across oncoming traffic. So there's everything that was rooted in that visionary idea has been rooted in increased safety and increased walkability for our community. A $30 million investment at Hollis T. Williams, except asking folks in this neighborhood to cross 4 lanes of one-way high-speed traffic, we might be missing the mark there. So it's certainly, anytime we can look at two-waying a road, I think we should always be interested in that. But certainly, back to the original part of the question, that was a consultant saying, this is one of dozens of projects that we say, that we listen to those community members who told us that this is something that they'd be interested in, and mayor and council, here you go, here's this large list of visionary projects. So I just want to curb the concern that a decision's been made or that we're going to do that. In fact, the next step that we would have to take is that we would have to contribute funds from the city to FDOT. Those are state roads. So we would have to contribute funds to FDOT to increase, because if we were to design it as two-way, we would have, it's gonna be about a $6 million construction increase to be able to two-way those streets. So if we want to do that, we would need to contribute to the design of those streets. So we are at least all of the design process away from that construction process. We're talking about multiple years away from that actually coming to fruition. But when the time is right on any of those projects, we'll continue to engage the community. And I'm really proud of our CRA and our Parks and Rec department and our Public Works department. I think we're setting a new standard of what community engagement's like, whether that be the strategic plan, the CRA update. I mean, I bet they had 15 meetings, in all of our CRAs over the last few months. And we're coming to where the people are, not just hoping that they show up, one day at one place, which sometimes can be the standard for governments. And so I'm very proud of the job that we're doing and trying to make sure that people are heard. Yep.
Mayor, regarding your comments this morning to the Triumph Board, one of the things you mentioned was the ongoing discussion between the city, the airport, and PSC regarding their $15 million grant for a schoolhouse. Is there any daylight in the negotiations between PSC on siting the permanent location at the airport? And if so, what seem to be the sticking points at this?
Yeah, I think there's lots of daylight right now. I feel pretty much, we haven't signed the final contract, but I think PSC's happy about where they are and the city's happy about where they are. We kind of had an all hands meeting, and I don't think there was any reservation on behalf of the city or PSC in terms of wanting to do it. But this is unique. You have a government, you have a school and a city and an airport that all have these different kind of default things that are in a lease, right? So if our airport was leasing property to a private company, an ST, well, there's some standard language in there that would say, let's just use something minor, like we have the ability to come in and inspect the building, and if it's not up to par, we can go fix it and charge you. Let's just use that as an example. Well, the university has its own rubric. I mean, they have their inspections probably even more stringent than ours from a fire exit standpoint, ingress and egress. So every year, someone goes to the University of West Florida or goes to Pensacola State and audits these buildings to make sure that they're up to this certain code. So I'm just using that example. That's a very minor one, but that was something where we had some language in that says we can come in. And of course, Pensacola State says, well, wait a second, we've got our own calculation. So great. All we did was say, all right, as long as Pensacola State adheres and notifies us to their own, inspection plan, then so problem solved, right? So I'm just using that as an example. We didn't have deltas in rent or deltas in things that would normally be any issue. It was just these university system with a city and an airport that all have kind of their own way of doing things and just making them mesh and merge. So it really, at the end of the day, nothing was of any major consequence, and we're certainly looking forward to it. So I fully expect that that'll be formalized any day now.
Mr. Hackett said that the PSC ultimate goal is to site it in what was Hangar 4.
Yeah, maybe I didn't hear him say that specifically, but regardless, to clarify, the school would go to the north of 3. So what I would say is, if you think about the stores along Langley, on the south side of Langley, facing north as you make that turn, it would be the closest structure in behind those. So it would be the northernmost structure on that side. So it's actually on the north of Hangar 3 is what's going to be proposed. We got final surveying and all that going on. And a couple points of clarification. This would be the university's building, and their agreement is with us. And ST has stepped up, and they have committed to $5 million in scholarships to allow our Pensacolians to go and become breadwinners of their family by the time they're 18, 19, 20 years old, which is what our expectation is. And secondly, I know there's some confusion about whether there's exclusivity. If someone goes to that school, do they have to work for ST? Absolutely not. ST does not get first dibs on people who graduate from there. that is an investment regionally. So whether those folks go to Leonardo Helicopter or they go to ST Engineering, what we want is bright futures for Pensacolians. We are not putting them in a position where they would have to go to a certain company. I don't think that would be fair, or what PSC would want, and it's certainly not what the city wants. So our goal is get them educated so they can start making a really good living. And wherever they do that, hopefully it's in Pensacola, but wherever they do that, that's a good thing.
You also mentioned to the tribe board that you were getting, or had started negotiations between one of the colleges here and American Magic project at the port. Is this new news? Is this UWF or PSC?
Yeah, so UWF proposed to Triumph today the WAVE project, as they call it, which is ultimately kind of an engineering collaboration on our port between American Magic, the port, and UWF. There's already an existing presence there, John, so this is not from scratch, but it's an expansion of that presence. And what we know is when American Magic gets here, not only are they going to have needs in that field, we fully expect that once American Magic establishes themselves here, we expect ancillary companies in this similar space to be, whether you make sales, whether it be a USA Sailing or Olympics, who knows what it could be, where we would start to see this compounding impact of having American Magic here. Exactly. So we know that anything in the realm of what American Magic's going to bring is going to need some engineering chops. We know that. And so continuing to expand that, their investment in the port, I think that's a great thing for us long term. And when we're going out, and Erica and our economic development team, Florida West, is going out and recruiting people to say, hey, we've got American Magic. Now we can say we've got American Magic, and we've got some engineers at the ready for you if you're looking for the talent to be able to move to Pensacola. And so honestly, it's probably a similar conversation to the Pensacola State at ST. Maybe we got a few years too late getting going on ST, but we didn't want to have that same issue again. If we expect this to be a cluster for us, let's get out in front of it. So certainly appreciate and fully support UWF's grant ask from Triumph, and having that presence on our port, I think, is a really good thing. Yeah.
So the one thing that asked, this long hollow tower, the communications tower, the city's looking at taking that down for stormwater improvements.
Uh-huh.
So they wanted to ask, where are we in that process? And given that 3 different law enforcement agencies and several local radio stations use that tower, is there any concern for disruption of communications for them when taking this tower?
Yeah, so I'll answer the second part first. No, we expect zero disruptions of any communications. The reason we're taking this on now, and the reason that we needed council action to terminate the lease, we still have at least a year, if not longer, before we would take any action with that tower, regardless of the lease termination. But here's the reality. We have $30 million to have the largest transformational stormwater improvement in the history of the city. We can't move forward with that without knowing how big our canvas is. So if we don't get it clear that we can now design a much larger long hollow pond, then we'll miss a great opportunity. So when they say chicken or egg, we know which one needs to go first. What we need to know how large we can make this pond. But we've got several months and well over a year before we would see a shovel in the dirt anywhere over there. But we would be regret, and we would be remiss to not do step one, which is how big's the canvas. And so that's what we're working on now is having how big is the property that we can expand this pond on. So with that action, that allows us to now move ahead with our design and engineering team and say, okay, great, we're going to have this property in the future that's clear for this pond. And so not only is it our obligation of the grant to make sure that the other folks that are on that tower get a place to go, that is our obligation, but even if it wasn't, the expectation that our media and our radio need, our public safety officials need to communicate and be on a tower controls itself. We would absolutely not support the idea of that being a secondary thought. We know when there's a hurricane, when there's emergency operations happening, we know how vital the communication with our public is. So So this is not the easiest way to do it. This is probably the most complicated way to do it, but it was that important because the largest transformational opportunity to make sure that this neighborhood doesn't flood like it has historically, is to expand that pond. And so, I've given this a lot of thought, and you think about why these both need to happen. And, we could say, you can't really do one without the other. We could increase stormwater capacity and decrease flooding down here, but if our community can't get a message out in a time of need, then we've failed the community, right? And then when you look at it at the inverse and you say, man, our radio frequency is really good, we can get the word out to everybody, but someone's listening to the radio when they're knee deep in water in their house, then that doesn't solve our problem either. And so that's why both of these things have to be hand in hand. And so we will not leave behind our ability to let our citizens know what's going on. And that is our duty, that is our obligation. But our obligation is to keep people's houses dry and keep them safe. And so this step is an absolute must in order to do that. And we get to say that, and this project is going under 18 city block, what was 18 city blocks of a neighborhood before the interstate came in. And we can have no greater impact on our capacity for stormwater than expanding the existing pond. So we can build as many ponds as we want under the interstate. That will be a fraction of the positive stormwater impact of expanding the existing pond. So that's why it's so vital to us that we move forward with it. Go ahead. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so Mayor, you also mentioned this morning that you have reorganized the CRA now to be reporting to your economic development team. Could you give us, what is the message in that? You said something along the lines of you can go look for businesses that come locate here, but if the quality of life isn't all that it could be, then we may be missing the boat. That quality of life, perhaps, quality of place, is the biggest driver of economic development.
Yeah.
Are you satisfied that this will put us on the right track in terms of job growth, place to live?
Yeah. Yeah, listen, I think to me, having, in CRA has evolved. We're used to report to council. Now it's been for a long time, it's been in development services, which is kind of in this planning and permitting type area. And there's some value in that. To me, CRA is community redevelopment. And the conversations that we have in economic development, I feel are much more relevant. And it also, so let's just take, for example, the Baptist Hospital project, where we have to go get $16 million potentially to go have demolition. We think that the marriage of CRA and economic development, and how, really how we figured it out is we realized how many meetings CRA and economic development are in at the same time, much more so than planning and zoning and CRA. So obviously all three of those departments are going to work together, but the economic development office's job is to look at big picture. What is the great economic positive impacts we can have as a city, as a community, as a region? And then CRA, a lot of things that are in the CRA's toolkit to help do that. There's lots of things that are in there, whether it be tax abatement, whether it be TIF funding, whether it be bond funding. There's lots of those things that there's decisions that CRA makes for neighborhoods that positively impact economic development. So there'll still be, of course, there's some apples and oranges there too. I mean, the CRA will continue to work the exact same way they've worked before, but we just found ourselves in a situation where these two offices were much more likely to be in the same room on the same subject than we saw with CRA and the planning office or the zoning office. And so we've seen a lot of positive impact from it. I think the CRA staff has appreciated that, and I think economic development being closer and knowing what's out there and the questions that we get, the phone calls we receive from people, I think has been valuable. So it's been positive. It's early, but it's been positive so far. Anything else? Yes, sir.
I'm part of the East Side neighborhood, and specifically, my question, my inquiry related to the efforts that we've made in the past to by the neighbors to garner signatures, pass it along to your office, I think, send it to the mayor's office. But what I'd like to know specifically is there a point of contact within your office so that we can ask questions pertaining to the petition? Because the petition implies that we can just use persons who live on a particular street. But I'm not sure, the big question is, do we need to gather petitions?
Sure. Well, David Forte right there, a few seats over from you, can get you all the information you need. And just the why behind that process is, I think a lot of times people hear traffic calming and they say, well, Mayor, why don't you put in a speed bump or a stop sign? There's lots of legal issues to that. And I'll tell you one thing I've learned in a couple of years as mayor is speed bump sounds good until sometimes it's in front of your house and you hear it all night long, you know? So we'll put a speed bump in, and I just mean historically. We'll put a speed bump in, and then we get about a week later, the 3-4 houses in front of that speed bump all of a sudden don't think it's as good of an idea. And that's the complexities of traffic calming. And honestly, it's why the conversations of one-way streets and two-way streets, there's lots of mechanisms that can be put in place. And I strongly suggest that when we have that conversation about that, folks really go do their research on the positive impacts of two-waying a street. The reason MLK and Davis have been one-way streets is because that was pre-interstate. I mean, that was the way to move people north and south. That's now not a necessity. If someone wants to go north and south, they can get on the interstate and do it. So my argument would be, if we allowed an interstate system to dissect a neighborhood and negatively impact the neighborhood, why are we continuing to do that twice? Why would we not reconnect the neighborhood, make those two-way streets, make them safer to cross, make it safer for kids to bike on, and not continue along with two different dissections of the same neighborhood over generations of time? So that's why I'm very interested in looking at it. But as I mentioned to someone earlier, that decision has not been made. You know, we're a long way off from that. But I definitely encourage the neighborhood and the residents to look at that and really do their research on the positive, valuable safety impacts and connectivity impacts with your neighbors as it pertains to two-way streets versus these very fast one-way streets moving forward. But David right here in this garnet jacket, he's a good FSU fan even this year. He's in the garnet jacket right there. So you don't see me in a garnet jacket. I'm not as loyal. So anyway, anything else? Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So is there some criteria that you will use? Do you expect us to do certain criteria?
David will get you all that information. There's a certain number you got to get a certain percentage of the folks on the street, things like that. So I don't want to misquote that. David knows it better than I do, and he'll get you any information that you and your neighbors need. But thanks for the question. All right, that's it. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.